I believe laws exist to protect the people of the world. However, it's also a fact that there are those who manipulate the law to commit wrongdoing. To combat such evils, perhaps knowledge of the law is essential. My name is Jessica. Justice is the order of society, a saying from the ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle. I understand what order means. It signifies the structure that keeps society in a harmonious state. But what is justice? It's a term indicating the right reasoning and correctness of human actions. Yet, what's deemed right can vary based on historical context, regional characteristics, religion, race, and other factors. For instance, during the medieval times, defeating one's enemies might have been seen as just. For believers of a certain religion, upholding its teachings might be the highest form of justice. But in today's society, harming an enemy would be a crime, and those not affiliated with a religion might not see justice in its teachings. This has turned into a philosophical discussion. I wonder how Aristotle would explain it then. I believe that creating rules for a society where everyone can live in peace and ensuring everyone abides by them might be the justice that's needed in today's world. I've always pondered about justice. I think a lot of it comes from my father's influence, but maybe it's also due to my inherent nature or temperament. My dad was a straightforward man who despised dishonesty. He would often break down complex topics about how one should behave into simpler terms for me and my younger brother, who's 4 years my junior. Even as a child, I found his words convincing. They resonated deeply within me, and I was profoundly influenced by them. Considering my inherent temperament, being his daughter, I guess my dad's influence is genetically the strongest. Around the time I entered middle school, I became interested in law. Back then, several TV dramas revolving around prosecutors, judges, and lawyers were broadcasted consecutively, and they were all the rage. Even though I had a strong sense of justice, I was still a typical middle school girl, so I jumped on the bandwagon. What set me apart was my genuine interest in the job descriptions and pondering how I would handle certain situations. Of course, I was also drawn to the popular actors and became a fan of the bands singing the theme songs, just like any regular viewer. But my fascination gravitated more and more towards the legal world and the judiciary. I don't publicly admit that my interest was piqued because of the consecutive legal dramas that year, as it might make me seem fickle. Even if I was just a drama enthusiast, the fact remains that it captured my heart, and I aimed for and successfully got into a law school. Not to toot my own horn, but after immersing myself in law studies for 4 years, I graduated with excellent grades. After graduation, I took a couple of years to explore jobs that piqued my interest at the time, gaining life experience. Eventually, my focus returned to the legal field. I managed to secure a position at the main office of the American Bar Association, which oversees all the lawyers' associations in the country. Working in the legal field broadened my perspective towards society. I became deeply engrossed in my work, trying to figure out how I could help the vulnerable who felt helpless against the world's injustices. Before I knew it, I was nearing 30. Around that time, the president of the Bar Association I worked for suggested that I move to a lawyers' association in New York, which had a myriad of issues. According to him, they needed my expertise to help rectify the situation in the bustling city. Feeling honored and intrigued by the new opportunity, I accepted his offer. Originally, the Bar Association is a private organization that guides and supervises its member lawyers. To practice as a lawyer in the U.S., one must be affiliated with a local bar association. To work as a lawyer, one needs to be registered in the Lawyers Directory, which is done through the local bar association apart from the American Bar Association. Lawyers typically work in law firms, so the Bar Association doesn't directly handle cases from clients. My role was to manage the legal consultation service for the public provided by the Bar Association. There are many more people facing legal troubles than one might think. I had a strong desire to help as many of them as possible. Each law firm or individual lawyer has their specialty. Like criminal cases, civil cases, traffic accidents, divorce issues, and so on. In the area overseen by our Bar Association, there was a law firm that was particularly dedicated to offering legal consultations to the public. Of course, there was a business aspect to it, trying to convert consultations into actual cases. But their proactive involvement in less profitable areas clearly showed their commitment to helping the public. John, a lawyer from that firm, was also actively involved in the Bar Association's legal consultation service. I always admired John's approach, which was clearly on the side of the citizens.
Jessica,
our consultation is until 5 p.m. today, right? Let's try to accommodate as many people as possible. Thank you, as always. I think we'll have more visitors than usual today, so it's gonna be busy. John would listen carefully to each client and provide precise advice. In some cases, just giving advice wasn't enough. He'd then explain the necessary fees and suggest using the services of a law firm. It wasn't just about profit, his clear stance was to help those in need. Of all the lawyers I've met, I consider him to be one of the very best. As John and I interacted more, we became close, discussing various matters, including work. Once, he mentioned a case he was handling and was unsure about how to proceed. I offered to listen. And he shared the details, even though he might have thought it pointless to discuss with an administrative staff like me. Perhaps he was just venting, but I was glad he confided in me and wanted to help in any way I could. From our conversation, I identified two main points and potential solutions. Carefully choosing my words to avoid sounding presumptuous, I shared my thoughts, and he genuinely appreciated my input. Wow, I hadn't thought of that. Thanks, that's really helpful. Seeing his genuine smile, I rediscovered his kindness and rich personality. About 2 weeks later, he approached me with a gleam in his eye. Thanks for the advice the other day, Jessica. I followed your suggestions, and everything worked out. The client was satisfied, and it boosted my reputation. I'm glad I could help. But you're really knowledgeable about the law and problem solving. Did you ever work as a paralegal somewhere? Oh, no, I just dabbled in law studies a bit. It helps with my administrative duties. I was evasive in my response. Anyway, you're really smart. As a token of my appreciation, would you mind me taking you out to dinner? I hesitated but eventually agreed to his invitation, partly out of obligation. I felt a bit overwhelmed, but deep down, there was a genuine feeling of happiness. He took me to a chic, mature restaurant, a place I'd never been to before. He was a great conversationalist, discussing his work and other hobbies passionately, engaging me in a pleasant back and forth. It wasn't just a one-sided conversation. The back-and-forth exchange of words, drawing me into the conversation, felt comforting. As the evening was winding down, he said, "Thanks for joining me tonight. I invited you under the pretense of thanking you for your advice, but truth be told, I've wanted to ask you out for a long time. I don't want this to be a one-time thing." After a brief pause, he looked me in the eyes and earnestly said, "Jessica, I love you." I was taken aback, having never heard such words from a man before. But after a moment, I managed to say, "I'm so happy to hear you say that." Our relationship blossomed, and every day felt fresh and exciting. John often consulted me about his work. And my suggestions seemed to hit the mark, helping his career thrive. Seeing him happy made me happy. Could this be what they call being a significant other? I felt my face turning red at the thought. The thought made me blush, especially since the term may refer to a couple loving each other so much, and it even made me think of marriage. It felt like fate when John presented me with a ring, formally asking me to marry him. I silently thanked the heavens. And so, we got married. Becoming a wife was a surreal experience, something I hadn't imagined until recently. My parents and younger brother congratulated us, and I felt truly blessed. My uncle, who had always been fond of me, seemed a bit downcast. My father explained that he probably felt lonely seeing his niece, whom he considered like a daughter, getting married. Married life had its challenges, but navigating them was part of the fun. The satisfaction of discovering something new together was a clear sign of happiness. I continued working, and John was supportive. John had always been supportive, which motivated me even more to take care of our home. He'd often say, "Since we both work, let's cooperate on household chores. That's what being a couple is all about." His kind words always touched my heart. As we celebrated our first wedding anniversary, we gave a toast to our journey together. I've heard the first anniversary is called the paper wedding. It's still fragile like paper, but I hope that as the years go by, it'll strengthen to silver or gold. Lately, I've been concerned about John. Firstly, he stopped working at the public consultation desk. He hasn't been attending the Bar Association meetings, and it seems he's consciously stepping back from front desk duties at the law firm. I guess John has his own vision and thoughts about his work. It's lonely that he hasn't shared it with me, but I understand men sometimes want to make their own decisions. What's been bothering me more is that John's been coming home late. When we first got married, unless there was unexpected overtime, he'd rush home to spend time with me. But lately, he's been coming home later and later, and it's not unusual for him to return after midnight. John, are you really that busy at work? I'm worried about your health. Please try to come home earlier. It's work, what can I do? I'm fine, so don't worry too much. Don't worry too much? As your wife, it's natural for me to be concerned, especially with you coming home after midnight so often. I'm working hard, isn't that enough? Anyway, I have a business trip this weekend. A business trip? What kind of case requires that? Ugh, you're so nagging. I'm going because it's necessary. All you need to do is see me off with a smile. John shooed me dismissively and retreated to our room. True to his word, John left for an overnight business trip that weekend. While lawyers do sometimes have overnight trips, from what I know, it's pretty rare. When John returned, he gave me a regional specialty as a souvenir, but it didn't make me happy. His late nights continued, with occasional weekend work and trips. Though not often, there were times he had to leave the house for work on weekends or for business trips. Once, I found a long strand of hair on his suit. Was it just a coincidence? But what kind of coincidence would lead to that? My mind raced, but I couldn't find any answers. Then, I witnessed something undeniable. On a day John said he was working, I decided to head into town for a change of scenery. Walking towards the downtown where my favorite store was located, I froze when I saw a familiar figure emerging from an alley. It was John, who was supposed to be at work. It was odd enough seeing him here at this time. Moreover, John was walking with a woman next to him. In addition to that, he was walking hand in hand with the woman. I was surprisingly calm. So that's how it is, I thought to myself. Without realizing, I began following them. After about 10 minutes, they disappeared into an entertainment district. That night, I sat on the living room couch, waiting for John. He returned around 12:30 a.m., humming a tune. When he noticed me, he jumped, exclaiming, "Whoa! Welcome home, John. You seem to have had fun. Tired? You were awake? It's just work, not exactly fun. I went out today and saw you entering a suspicious place with a woman. How long have you been cheating?" John flinched for a moment but quickly regained his composure. "What are you talking about? It's a misunderstanding. If you saw us, you should have said hi. She's a client, and we just talked at that lounge. That's all." "Oh, really? It's interesting that you had to get a key at the front desk just to go to a lounge. I wasn't aware of such a system." I spoke with a cold detachment. "You saw that too? Even so, you can't just accuse me of cheating. What if I was just escorting her to her room?" "How kind of you, especially for a client." John snapped back, clearly irritated. "Ugh, this is so annoying. There's no proof I'm cheating. Actually, this is a good opportunity. Let's get divorced. I'm tired of you." "John, did you really feel that way about me? It's only been a little over a year since we got married. Is there no love left?" Facing my question, John's demeanor changed dramatically, as if he was a different person. "Love? If there was any, it was just a little in the beginning. Well, you're a good-looking woman for your age, and I thought it'd be nice to have you. Plus, you seem smart, maybe you'd be useful." "That's a harsh way to put it, for your age." "It's the truth. I thought you'd be useful, but you weren't. So, I'm done with you. I'll find someone else who can be more useful to me." I had thought John was a wonderful man when we first met, but maybe this was his true self. With my limited experience in love, I couldn't see through him. It was frustrating. "So, you cheated because of that? Come on, how many times do I have to say it? Do you have any proof? Our divorce is just irreconcilable differences. A split on moiety-moiety status. Just say it in plain English, 50-50. But that's not the case, is it? You'll pay more spousal support than me when we get a divorce since you earn more than me as a lawyer. I'm not going to file a divorce paper unless the property is divided equally. But if you can prove cheating, I'll give you $500,000. John seemed confident he hadn't slipped up. But I couldn't help but laugh. I had tried to remain calm and collected, but this was too much. "Are you sure about that?" John looked shocked at my sudden change in demeanor. Your mistress, was her name Mia? The receptionist at the firm? You're after her because her father runs a big law firm, right? How do you know about Mia? I'm sorry, even though we're married, I haven't told you everything about me. I have certain skills. Like this, for instance. I handed John a piece of paper. Upon seeing it, he looked horrified. It was a written statement from Mia, promising she would never see John again. After witnessing their rendezvous, I waited for them. I had intended to confront them, waiting in front of the building. I had intended to catch them as they came out, but they quickly split off to the left and right as they exited the door. It was late at night when John came home, so he must have gone somewhere to play after that, but that didn't matter anyway. I approached Mia, who was alone, and informed her about what I knew regarding the affair. Upon realizing my identity, Mia was visibly shaken, so I took her to a nearby diner. There, I had her write a statement promising she would never have an inappropriate relationship with John again. I chose a public place to make it clear I wasn't threatening or coercing her. Seeing the statement, John exclaimed, "When did you get this? It doesn't explicitly say you cheated, but the content implies it. It'll be strong evidence in my favor. You, being a brilliant lawyer, should know that." John, clutching the statement, began to tremble. Of course, I had made copies, so even if he destroyed it, it wouldn't matter. I then presented more evidence of their affair, chat logs, receipts from their dates, and more. "When did you get all this?" His once confident demeanor had vanished, and he looked pale. "I'll be happy to get that $500,000. My investigative skills and knowledge were honed during the 2 years I worked at my father's detective agency after college. My father's sense of justice was embodied in his work, uncovering wrongdoing in society. I had always been interested in my father's work, partly influenced by a detective TV show I watched at the time. Perhaps my motivations haven't changed much since I aspired to join the legal profession. Regardless, my experience proved invaluable in my subsequent career. I then slowly took a badge from my pocket and pinned it to my chest. "Why do you have that badge?" John's eyes widened in disbelief. The badge I wore was that of an attorney. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you. I'm also a lawyer, just like you." I had passed the bar exam while still in law school. Normally, one would become a judicial trainee after graduation, but I had chosen to train at my father's detective agency for 2 years before becoming a trainee and eventually a lawyer. When I first got my job, the president of the bar association that oversees all lawyers in every state was my uncle, Robert. Wanting to work for the greater good with a broad perspective, I joined his firm, leveraging our family connection. Under his guidance, I gained experience as a lawyer while also being affiliated with his law firm. Normally, juggling both roles would be impossible, but with Robert's support, I managed. It was physically demanding, but my investigative skills, honed at my father's agency, often came in handy in my legal work. Years later, I had made a name for myself in the legal world. Having gained a reputation, I moved to the New York Bar Association at my uncle's suggestion. While I continued to work at Robert's firm, I also became a member of the disciplinary committee of the Bar Association. When a lawyer commits misconduct or violates the law, the case first goes to the ethics committee of the Bar Association they belong to. If the ethics committee determines the lawyer's actions are inexcusable, the disciplinary committee then deliberates on the punishment. Being in a position to judge lawyers, I had refrained from revealing this to my husband, John. As I revealed more and more, John was in a state of shock. "John, it seems you're in deep trouble. Someone with a conscience has reported you, and the disciplinary committee is already in motion." What John had been doing was essentially guiding people on tax evasion. He would identify financially struggling individuals at public consultation desks, cunningly propose tax evasion, and earn money by teaching them the methods. How did you find out about all this?" John's cries echoed around us. Thinking he wouldn't get caught was naive. Soon after, John was arrested by the police. His tax evasion guidance wasn't a solo act. He was the ringleader of a large, organized group. The investigation was led by the NYPD's Second Investigation Division, and the prosecutor in charge was my younger brother, Mike. Mike, like me, had pursued a career in law but had become a prosecutor. Thanks to his achievements in this case, he would be transferred to the Special Investigation Department of the prosecutor's office, which he had always wanted. The disciplinary committee is still deliberating on John's case, but he's likely to face the harshest punishment, disbarment. If disbarred, he'd lose his license to practice law for 3 years. In the past, only one person has been readmitted after such a penalty. Moreover, if he's sentenced to imprisonment after the trial, he'll lose his license permanently. John and I finalized our divorce. While I won't get the full $500,000 since it was just a verbal promise, I intend to claim the property as much as possible. However, it's doubtful whether John, now a convicted felon and unemployed, will be able to pay. Uncle Robert told me he was sorry. He had received information that something shady might be happening under the current Bar Association's watch and had hoped I could uncover it. That's why he had suggested I move. At the time, he didn't know the specifics or who was involved, but he had been uneasy when I married John, a member of the Bar Association. It all made sense, recalling his uneasy expression when I announced my marriage. But it wasn't Robert's fault. It was my mistake for not seeing through John. I hope this experience doesn't make me lose faith in people. I still want to use the law to fight for justice and help others.